So if I look at this and I go from here to here, remember one full rotation. So let's talk about that. One full rotation. Remember, whatever I write down, I want you guys to write down, is equal to, and since the assignment was only in degrees, we'll think about degrees, 360 degrees. Okay? So when I think about this, this is really 3/4 of a rotation, isn't it? Whoops. Now, somebody just before I started recording said we're going counterclockwise, right? So counterclockwise is positive. Okay, so it's a positive 3/4. So what you would do is you would just multiply, and you could do this in you could do this in a proportion if you wanted to or whatever, but you're really just going to say 3/4 times 360. Remember that 360 is the same as 360 over 1. 4 divided by 4 is 1. What's 360 divided by 4? 90. So there's some cross canceling. I can see by the looks on your faces, maybe we won't cross cancel. Let's just multiply it out. What's 3 times 360? Well, let's get out our handy dandy calculator. Actually, I could do that one in my head. It's going to be 1080, right? What? So we're just multiplying across. All right. What's 4 times 1? 4. Now, what's 180 divided by 4? 270. So this reduces down to 270 degrees. So we start here. This is what we call the initial side. Right? This is the initial side. I'm going to abbreviate it. But remember, that's 0 degrees. And so if we rotate counterclockwise, this would be 90 degrees. We wrote this down. This would be 180 degrees over here. And then if you remember, I wrote down 270 degrees. Okay? All right. How do you guys feel about that? Thumbs up, you get it? Thumbs down? All right. Now, the reason we're reviewing this, and so my angle is 3/4 of a rotation, and this is a positive angle of 270 degrees. So now for this next one, again, this is my initial side. Oh, I forgot to mention. So if this is my initial side, then what does that make this side over here? The terminal. That's where it ends. All right. And then this would be my terminal. That's where it ends. And how do I know it's the initial? How do I know the terminal? The terminal is where the arrow is pointing. That is pointing to where it stops. The initial on the XY plane is always going to start at the x-axis between the first and fourth quadrants. By the way, do you guys remember the quadrants? It's going to be important. Remember, this is quadrant 1. This is quadrant 2. You guys should be writing all this down. This is quadrant 3. And did I say first and fourth? Or did I? I don't know what I said. This is what it is. Okay? So, is that a full rotation? No. What is the rotation? 3/4. But we're going clockwise. So it's a negative 3/4 rotation. So then we still do the same thing. We're going to say 3/4 times the 360, right? But because of this negative sign, it ends up becoming a negative 270 degrees. The math is still the same. Okay. So when I graded your homework, the math part you guys got down pat. A lot of you had the correct angle, but sometimes you had a negative, or let me back up. I think everybody had positive answers, but there were a couple of those where the degree should have been negative because it was counterclockwise. So that's why we're going over that. Okay, are there any questions on that? So this is important in trig because sometimes we'll rotate clockwise, sometimes we'll rotate counterclockwise, and it changes the angle. By the way, what is this if I were to go counterclockwise? What is the measure of this angle? If I were to go from here to here, what would that be? If I were to go like this, 90 degrees.